Hey guys, I'm trying out the live stream again, but it looks like there's an issue with the audio and the internet, maybe. Well, let's see. Night draped the Watts household like a velvet shroud, soft and deceptively gentle. In the stillness of the late hour, Chris lay awake beside his sleeping wife. Shanann's breathing was steady, warm, a fragile rhythm that once brought him comfort, now echoed in his ears like the ticking of a clock counting down. Just kind of warming up here, waiting for people to show up. I'm pretty sure we're live and it's public this time. Here, let me just try something here. Here we go. And let's just see what's happening on my channel right now. It says I'm live. Woohoo.
In other news, Alaska residents are going to be happy to hear this. It just came out. There's a new website where any Alaska resident, as long as you live with... Now, there's a new website where any Alaska
There's definitely a delay. I don't know why. There's definitely a delay. So I don't know if this is going to work, but I can hear myself. I don't see anybody on my channel, but I don't know why. There are people here. Hey guys, welcome to Timeless Mysteries. So I had to reformat my computer the other day, and so all of my settings are wrong. So I don't know. I'm just trying to hang out, see what happens with the live stream. I've been writing a lot of basically fiction lately. And I just thought maybe I would read some of it, kind of hang out. We can talk about Chris Watts. I know a lot of you guys love talking about this story. I've seen a couple of videos recently of Chris Watts in prison. And, you know, the guy really let himself go. You know, part of it's old age, I guess. You know, he's getting older. Part of it's being cooped up in a prison. But it's well deserved. So, yeah, I wrote this relationship kind of story about Chris and his mistress. I don't know if you guys want to hear it or not. It's not really a video. It's not really something I don't think I could even make it a video, to be honest. I don't really know. I've never really written fiction at all. This is based on a true story, and you know, I kind of just going off what we actually know of the guy, and how he reacted to different scenarios and how other people kind of profile him. You know, it's not completely fiction. but it's very dramatized, if that makes sense. So if you're in the chat, please say hello. You can just give me click the little heart thing there and let me know you're here and you're listening. And I will kind of read some of this. It's too long for me to actually read the entire thing. Um, if you guys don't want to hear about Chris Watts, I am writing about Edmund Kemper also. I've been working on that all day today. And the guy is pretty creepy. And it's weird how he just kind of divulges all that information about himself. And how he thinks and why. It's like everything that anybody who writes about true crime wants in their, you know, in their story, because it answers all the questions you might have. But one question I have, and I've always had this question, is when people who commit murder start talking about themselves and they say how things happened, it's is it always true? Can you really trust a murderer to tell you the truth about what he was thinking and why he did it? Hey, Jessica, how's it going? So, yeah, I don't do lives very much. I know that I want to, but it's just kind of hard. I don't really have the space, and I got this green screen thing, but it doesn't really fit here. And then when it's behind me, it doesn't even like fit. Like my widescreen camera cuts too big of a picture, so it doesn't even really do anything. So I don't know. I don't have the space. I want to do lives. I enjoy hearing myself talk, I think. But if you guys want to hear a little bit of this story I wrote, it actually started out as a story about Chris and Nicole before the murders. The thing with hey, Cuffew, I think I've seen a couple of your comments. Thank you for joining us. I don't do lives very often. I want to do them more. I'm kind of new to the live. Actually, when I started my channel, I didn't even like using my own voice or my own face. But the more I do this, the more I think I'll get used to it. So I hope you guys like what I'm going to be talking about. It's not going to be completely, I don't know, just I guess listen. I'll read a couple of paragraphs, and if you guys hate it, we can talk about other things. We can maybe look at one of my better videos. The Chris Watts video, "The Coward's Life." That one did well, and it kind of is what has been inspiring me to write in this way. But I'll just read a little bit of it, and hope you guys enjoy it. Make sure to click the hearts and like the video and stuff. And um, yeah, let's have a little fun, okay? Here we go. Let me get a drink here. Sorry, guys. Thank you. Night draped the Watts household like a velvet shroud, soft and deceptively gentle. In the stillness of the late hour, Chris lay awake beside his sleeping wife. Shanann's breathing was steady and warm, a fragile rhythm that once brought him comfort. Now it echoed in his ears like the ticking of a clock counting down. Each inhale and exhale, a reminder of the life pulsing next to him and the life within her. So innocently unaware, the summer darkness pressed against the bedroom windows, thick with secrets, as if the night itself knew what was coming and held its breath in fear. By the glow of a solitary street lamp outside, fleeting shadows danced on the wall. Chris watched them play across the framed family portrait atop his dresser. In the photo, they were all smiles. Shanann radiant and proud, little Bella perched on Chris's shoulder, and Celeste cradled in her mother's arms. a perfect family captured in sunlight. But here in the midnight hush, that smiling image felt like a taunt from a life he no longer recognized. He had become a stranger in his own home, an imposter wearing a husband's face and a father's hands. Those hands, Chris flexed his fingers slowly, recalling how Shanann would place his palm on her swelling belly each night, guiding him to feel the faint flutter of the baby kicking within. Nico, she whispered with shining eyes, the name of their unborn son, a promise of hope. Her joy had once been contagious, drawing him into dreams of the future, but lately each kick beneath his hands only tightened a cord of dread around his heart. The future felt like a dark road with no escape, and he, stumbling blindly forward, can sense a chasm opening up ahead. He rose quietly from the bed, careful not to wake her. Standing in the doorway, Chris listened to the hush that enveloped the house. Down the hall, the girl's bedroom door was ajar, a pale nightlight casting a star-shaped glow on the ceiling. He could imagine Bella and Celeste tangled in their blankets, cheeks flushed with sleep, tiny mouths slightly opened. The image should have filled him with tenderness. Instead, he felt an icy prickling at the base of his neck, a voice in his mind, quiet, insistent, and it asked, "Who are you becoming?" He patted down the stairs, the floorboards sighing under his weight. Each creak seemed amplified, as though the house were living, and tracked his movement with disapproval. In the kitchen, the moonlight spilled through the window, painting the countertops in a ghostly sheen. The silence was suffocating. Chris's chest tightened. He opened his mouth to draw deeper. I lost my place. So what do you guys think of that? I got like almost 7,000 words just on this alone. Hey guys, welcome to the chat. Yeah, I'm just kind of going over this story that I've been writing. And we're kind of talking about Chris Watts here. And what I think he might have felt before all of this happened. So, yeah, what do you guys think? You think I should try to make something like this into a video? I really don't know that it's even possible. Like, when I write true crime, what I like about it is that you know the whole story already before you start writing, or most of the old story. Hey, I appreciate that. I hope I'm creating an atmosphere that's interesting at least, and want you to stay tuned. I think there's only 8 people here, but I believe this is the most people I've had on a live stream before. So thanks, guys. I really appreciate that. Lately I've kind of been getting like it's really been hard to write about true crime, the crime part. Like I don't know why. It's just kind of actually, I wrote about Jeffrey Dahmer and Ted Bundy a while back. And when I wrote about Dahmer, it was weird because like when I wrote it and recorded it, I was fine. But then I started keep thinking about it and I keep thinking about it. And then all of a sudden I'm not sleeping good. And, it just kind of gets a little harder to, write about murder sometimes. When you write about it, it's a little harder, I think, to stay detached from, what you're hearing when you're actually writing it and thinking it or recording it. Yeah, I've got another story. Cuffew, I know it's completely fiction, and I wrote it specifically for all of the people who think that she's involved. And, I'm really kind of embarrassed that I wrote it, but everything that everyone has ever wondered what she did, I put it in this story. I'd have to find it, but you know, I told the story where she was, it started with that phone call because they had planned it. They had went to the work site the day before, and they dug the hole, and the plan was to kill the wife. Um, but Chris and her had this argument on the phone, and that phone call that lasted 111 minutes. Yeah. So during that argument, Chris says, "No, I'm not going to do it. I can't do it." And she freaks out and says, "Well, this this is just a lie. You're a liar, just like everyone else. You don't really love me. You never really meant anything you said." And it turns into this big drama, and she threatens him. She says, "Well, if you don't do it, I'm going to come kill your family. I'm going to expose the affair. I'm going to go to the police and let them know that we were going to murder someone." And, in my story, she hangs up, and Chris like waits around, and then Shanann finally comes home. But he doesn't know is that Nicole had driven to his house, and she was outside watching. She saw Shanann come in the house. She saw the lights come on in various rooms for a few moments as, Shanann gets ready to go to bed. And then she sees all of the lights go off. And that makes her angry. So she goes around back, and she sneaks in the house the way I assume she knows, like some kind of security code, or she knows where the secret key is. And she goes into the back door. When she goes into the house, she catches Chris and Shanann having what she thought was intercourse. So in my story, this makes her very angry. And so she ends up going into the girls' room, and she murders the kids. And then as she's about to go, confront Chris and everything, she hears a sound. She doesn't know what it is because it doesn't sound normal. It's like a gurgling sound. And she goes in, she walks down slowly down the hallway until she looks into the bedroom. And that's when she sees Chris kill his wife, and Shanann's body goes limp. And so now at this point, I think Nicole would be terrified, right? She just killed his kids, who Chris hadn't ever considered killing, and now she's got to tell him that she did it. And he's like shocked that he sees her there, and he's like, "Hey, I did it." He doesn't freak out, and then she tells him, "Well, I killed the kids. They were watching. They saw this happen." And so that's how the children died. And so that is complete fiction. But I mean, as far as we know, it's fiction. It's plausible. I know I've heard a lot of stories where people think something like that has happened. And there is a lot of things that I've seen that I'm curious whether or not it's actually real or if it's been photoshopped, you know. I just never got over the way Nicole just acted so cold, and like during the interviews, somebody she cared about killed somebody. Imagine what it would be like for you if you're at a police station. You would talk to this guy before he killed his family, and he called you the day that he killed his family. He called you a couple times, he texted you, and you got to talk to the police. I don't think most people are going to react in a nonchalant kind of way, just like, "Oh, yeah, well, I don't know anything. I'm fine. I'm just deleting everything off of my phone," you know. But it's hard for me to believe that she actually did it. Like she actually planned this. I can imagine she would most likely have wanted Chris to leave his wife, but um, I don't think a married man actually would leave his wife. I think there's a statistic. I haven't looked it up lately, but you know, when you have an affair, you typically don't leave the wife or the husband to go be with the fling. You know, it just doesn't work that way. Um, I am working on something that's more factual, and it's just the relationship of Chris and Nicole. And it kind of goes along with the everything that happened before the murder. So why it happened, how common is this type of relationship? What kind of red flags were they ignoring? And most importantly, at the very end, I address why this particular relationship ended so differently to every other affair that's ever happened. Yeah, I'm sure there's some kind of record somewhere. Like they had to have gotten something off of that phone. Um, and speaking of the SIM card, I know a lot of people talk about the pinging of the towers, and I've actually researched a lot about how that works and how a cell phone picks a tower. And sometimes it will pick a tower that's far away, and it's just kind of a random thing. Um, Especially places that you've already been. So there is a slight little bit of doubt there for me on whether or not she actually was there that morning. But there is a neighbor who saw a truck that looked just like hers. And that's the only thing that kind of gets me like, well, why would there be what kind of coincidence is that? How common was the truck she had? I mean, it was just weird. Um, but she should have been questioned, and I think that um, I know most of you probably watched that video where I think that maybe she was in sort of some kind of witness protection. I know that there's not a lot of information on the internet about her, so I don't know if she's doing that, like having somebody scrub her from the internet as much as possible. But you can only find stuff about her after the murder. There's not a lot about her before that. So it's kind of curious to me. And, if you watch the video that I talk about how she's likely in, um, witness protection. I did talk to a prosecutor who told me, he doesn't work in Colorado, but he told me the kind of scenario how prosecutors work with detectives and how they, look for evidence and they try to find everything. And I don't know if maybe they just stopped because he confessed, or she did tell them where the body was buried, and that's why she didn't go to jail. And it's just a coincidence that Chris confessed a few minutes later, and she must have gotten some sort of agreement before that, because if you don't testify, you're not really a witness. But if you do give um, I mean, you can give detectives information that actually helps them crack a case, and it doesn't have to be in court, I think. Um, but yeah, I don't know if you go to some of the other YouTube channels like Zawoki, he seems to know where she is. He doesn't think she's in witness protection at all. And I mean, that is possible. Um, she could be just working from home, but the weird thing is that there's no pictures of her anywhere. Like, yeah, Chris and my it's like this, can you really trust a killer? They're a killer. Does that make them a liar too? I mean, we know he was a liar because we saw him lying to the news channels about his missing wife. We knew he was a liar because he was having a secret affair. You know, we know these things. You can't deny them. But is he going to, just because he's already been found guilty and already got life in jail, is he going to tell the truth? You know, I kind of think you're right. And the sad thing about that is there's lots of people that are grown adults, babies. It doesn't necessarily make them bad people. They just don't understand things the way other people do. They don't lead, they follow. They want help with everything. They don't do everything on their own, that kind of thing. But yeah, Nicole Kessinger is an interesting character in this story, mostly because we don't know anything about her. There's not a lot of information out there anymore that you can dig up on her. It's all been kind of scrubbed. I've heard people mention that her father was kind of wealthy and that he's probably paying for her to, get certain things kept off of the internet when they pop up. I don't know if that's true. I don't know a lot of things. And I think because of that, that's why we're still talking about it. If she would come out of hiding, if she would explain her story, maybe we could see a different side to this thing. And, one of the interesting things about true crime, especially before we find out all of the information, there's always been all kinds of speculations. And I've been working on the Golden State Killer story. And that particular story is interesting because the guy was known by several different serial killer type names. He was the East Area rapist. He was the what was it? The Vasilia Ranstacker, the original Night Stalker. He had these names, and he was committing crimes in the same state, and nobody knew that they were looking for different people. And back then, there were investigators like me without the internet searching, asking questions, trying to find out stuff. And there was a lot of really, really interesting speculation that was all wrong. So, I mean, that's always possible. Yeah, the Chris Watts is, you know, um, I don't know. Let me rethink here. Family annihilators are horrible. And when we think of family annihilators, we only see certain types of people that make national news. And Chris Watts was a middle class guy. He had a regular house, a nice car, a good job. And then, you can look at other um, family annihilators like Chris Coleman, who kind of came up in the same thing, where actually I think he was a little more than just middle class. He was kind of above that. He also had a beautiful family. He had, military background, and like he was, working for a well known church group thing that paid a lot of money. And he also did the same thing. He had a mistress, he had financial worries, he killed his family. But when you think about all of the murders that take place in a given year, a family annihilator is going to be less than 1% of all killers. So the stressors that these people have are the same stressors that many other families have. And 99.5% of those families never, end up dead or hurt, or somebody in jail because of domestic violence or something. It's really, really rare. And I think that's why it hits us so hard. um, but at the same time, there's other stories that I have found out about. um, yeah, the Joyce Mayer's ministries. Yeah, Chris Coleman, that story is crazy. And I was just reading about another story that's very similar to Chris Coleman, in the sense that this kid murdered his parents and his sister, but he had a kind of the same plan that Chris Coleman did, and he spray painted racial slurs on the wall to kind of mislead police. Um, and it's a family annihilator story that you probably haven't heard about too much, because it wasn't like a wife and children. But there's several other family annihilation stories that are even more gruesome that you never hear about. And the reason you don't hear about them is because these people have, financial problems, severe financial problems. They're on public assistance. They have, mental health issues and drug problems and, those kind of things. So it's harder, I think, for most people to, compare themselves to these people. And I think that's why they don't make it to the news. It's still just as tragic. It's still just as, it's just heart wrenching when a child gets killed. But yeah. So I don't know, you guys, what do you think about my little dramatization? Was it kind of I try to go for the spooky, storytelling. Um because before I did true crime, I was a ghost channel. I tried to do ghost stories. I don't know if any of you knew that. Before Timeless Mysteries was just a true crime channel, I actually covered historical ghost stories, and I would like to, talk about those things too. But it seems like on my channel, the most interest I have is on true crime, and I think it's the most interesting to write. So I've had this channel for just over a year now, year and a half. I started it back in, I want to say, August of 2023. So um, it's been around for a while. And the funny thing is, if you could actually see my old videos, you could see how terrible they are. And it's just the writing every day that has just changed me, and my writing's getting better all the time. Doesn't mean my storytelling's getting better, because YouTube doesn't show my videos to a lot of people, you know. But I just enjoy doing it. I've actually started writing a story for my kids, and it's nothing. I've never done anything like it before, but um, it started out as just like a story about a couple of boys who travel through a magical door, and then they go on a quest to save a princess. And I'm kind of excited. I've finally got about 16,000 words on that, and it's like my fourth or fifth draft. But the longer it gets, the harder it is to fix, because it's so long. You can't. There's not enough time in the day to do it. I don't know how real authors do it, but yeah, you guys, I really appreciate you guys watching this um, video live streaming. I don't have my backdrop up. I don't have a cool room like some of the YouTubers, but I've got a decent mic and a decent webcam, I think. And um, yeah, so there's a lot that I don't know how to do on these lives. If you can tell, I say a lot, and I don't know how people do it. Um, but let's see. I'll skip down some of this story. Maybe I'll read a little more before I go out. So let me find chapter 2. Oh wait, this isn't even the. Okay, hold on, guys. Sorry, trying to figure out. Let me see if I can find my other story. And this. So this one, I might actually make it into a video. Yeah, Zawogi is pretty cool. Like, I think he's an interesting looking person, and he's got a lot of character. And I don't know that I necessarily have much of that. I don't know. I feel weird making eye contact with the actual camera. So if you see me like looking to the sides, I feel like I'm autistic or something and I can't make eye contact. But it's just weird kind of looking into the camera. Um, but yeah, so this story here that I'm going to read a little bit from, maybe just the intro or something. It's a draft, but it's a forensic and a relationship analysis of the Chris Watts and Nicole Kessinger affair. So it's less dramatic, obviously, but and I've got a lot of sources. I've got a lot of books that I've read parts of. I haven't necessarily read everything out of every book. I don't always have a lot of the time. I work 5 days a week, and I don't know. I work on this stuff when I get home before I go to bed. My kids live in Arizona with their mother. And if that ever changes, I would probably be a lot happier, but I wouldn't have enough time to write any of this stuff. Or maybe I would get my 6-year-old to join me because he actually loves being on YouTube. And it was funny when I went down to go visit them. He actually told me that his friend was super excited that his dad was a YouTuber. And this kid came up to me and asked me if I had a platinum button or something. And I'm like, no, I only got a couple thousand subscribers and I'm just kind of starting out. But it was just cool to see my kid was proud that I was doing this kind of stuff. Um, but anyway, let me read this introduction at least and see what you guys think. And maybe I can do some of this stuff where I get some feedback before I actually record and publish some of this stuff, because I really get embarrassed when somebody says, "Oh, you got something wrong." And, if I had like 10 hours a day to research, I might be able to catch the mistakes, but it's kind of hard. I'm not a big channel. I don't have like a team of like editors. Yeah. So this is my introduction. It's a universal tragedy, really, because it happens. The affairs, I mean, they happen so often. And nobody enjoys it when it does, or when they get caught. So, anyways, here we go. When a mother and her young children go missing from what appears to be a normal family, the reflex is to fear an outside threat, a kidnapping, or an Amber Alert scenario, not a family annihilation perpetrated by the father. The Watts family tragedy is a reminder that families like the Wattses exist everywhere. Even seemingly average relationships can hide catastrophic fault lines. Outwardly, Chris and Shanann Watts were an ordinary suburban couple with 2 kids and another on the way. Nothing immediately signaled the potential for violence. Indeed, many family annihilators are described as highly repressed individuals who appear on the surface to be respectful, but privately they're facing crises. These cases are exceedingly rare. The one review I found, only 39 familicide cases in the US over the last 10 years. And like I was mentioning before, I'm kind of not reading anymore. But if you compare that number to the actual number of murders, it's a very, very low percentage. So, yeah, these cases are exceedingly rare. 39 familicide cases in the US over the last 10 years, which is why the default assumption is usually a tragedy befalling the family, not one caused by one of its own. Yet, as rare as family annihilation is, the psychological collapse that occurred in this case holds important lessons also. The Watts case focuses forces us to consider that under extreme internal conflicts and stresses, even an ostensibly normal person can unravel in unthinkable ways. Understanding the internal conflict and behavioral patterns that led to this extreme outcome is critical because the same dynamics of love, desire, and secrecy that played out here occur in countless other relationships, usually without violence. But the potential for the disaster, if combined with certain risk factors, in this analysis, we frame the Watts case not as a lurid anomaly, but as a universal cautionary tale of how ordinary emotions can ignite extraordinary tragedy when judgment fails. And this is a very raw first draft, and that is a kind of like really bad introduction, to be honest. I don't know, but let me just skip through here and find some interesting facts. Um, the Chris and Nicole Kessinger relationship bore hallmarks of a high risk affair. They hid it from everyone else. They met privately. They communicated covertly. Such conditions create adrenaline rush that can bond the pair closer together through this shared conspiracy. And I think it's really important when you think about how an affair happens. There is that secret that makes it more fun. If you weren't in a relationship and you can just openly be with somebody, would it be as exciting? And Chris Watts was going through some things. He had bankruptcy, and he was having issues with his wife, and he was just going through some stuff, and it was kind of natural in the sense of, he would try to meet those needs that it was unmet at home somewhere else. And when I say needs, I don't mean just like sexual needs, but like the emotional needs. Because Shanann was kind of bossy sometimes, and she was kind of, a type 8 personality. She didn't want to, wait around for him to figure things out. She wanted him to figure things out and fix things. And, so when he met Nicole, she was kind of the opposite. She told him how much she liked his thoughts. She told him how much, he was a good person. His thoughts and hopes and fears were important. And I don't know that he felt that at home. It might not have been that Shanann was actually like anti-Chris, or anything. She may not even known it. That's why going to marital counseling is important, because there's a lot of things that happen in relationships where one person or the other person doesn't really know what's going on with the other one, and that disconnect causes problems. But yeah, I'm also not victim blaming. I don't think Shanann was a bad person at all. I think she might have been bossy, a lot like Chris's mother, but I don't think she was necessarily a bad person. She just had different dreams, different ideas of what everything should be. And when they stopped communicating, things just went wrong. Um, and, like there's like little things that I picked up through Shanann's social media videos, where I catch the little controlling, you know, the the little phrases that kind of come out a little bit wrong, a little bit mean, like a little sarcastic maybe. But sarcasm is, to quote one of my favorite movies, Anger Management, is sarcasm is anger's little cousin or something, right? Anybody seen that movie? Um, but you hear her say things like, "Oh, my husband's such an idiot," and she smiles and she's laughing about it. But if you think about that, if you're talking to somebody and they said that and you're right there and they're smiling at you, are you going to just smile back and ignore it? Or are you going to look at the other person and wonder, well, should you have really said that? I mean, I just think it was little things like that that probably seemed huge to Chris. And I mean, it's hard to say what actually happened behind closed doors. We see the social media stuff, but even that is kind of faked because you can't, put on that boring face whenever you're on camera. You can't just kind of hang out and just sit there and not say anything. You have to have an idea what you're going to say. You have to kind of have a plan, and you want to show yourself your best self. So there's a lot of fake smiles and stuff like that. And she was excited about social media. Chris wasn't. um, but yeah, that relationship, and I really want to do this story, but it almost feels like, well, right now it's you guys don't even want to know how long it is. It's actually almost a novel, really. And I've just got a lot of notes. Um, and I've got to edit it down. I try to. Do you guys want longer videos? Because I try to keep my videos like around 10 minutes, and sometimes I feel like maybe YouTube doesn't like my videos because they're so short. And I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to say. Like, YouTube is weird. I try to keep my videos short just to keep the watch time ratio to be, I think sometimes if I have like a really long video, like 30 minutes, it'll have like an average watch time of like 7 or 8 minutes. But if I have a 12-minute video, I still have an average watch time of about 7 or 8 minutes. So um, that's why I typically try to keep my videos around 10 minutes, 10 to 12 minutes. Once it gets over like 15 minutes, I feel like it's just too long. And I don't know. I've got a video coming out that is going to be about 16 or 17 minutes long. And I'm trying to write a video on Ed Gein. And well, there's like that one is going to be interesting. I just recorded a talking head video for that. And it's the kind of a spooky story rather than the actual about Chris. What is it? Chris Gein. What was his name? Ed Gein. Yeah, Ed Gein. Um, but it kind of talks through the whole scenario of what it's like for this guy to live in this disgusting house, and how he, um, you know, goes about his day. And, he sees all this gory stuff and he smells all this horrible, rancid stuff and he thinks it's good. And I wrote it specifically to kind of be more of a story. And, he basically goes into his house, he, moves stuff around, and then he puts on his mother's skin. But he didn't actually dig up his mother, by the way. But in my story, he wears a face mask, his woman's garb or something, he called it. But that story, when I actually write the actual true crime part of the story, that one's going to be probably about 30 minutes, unless I cut it into 3 parts or something. But um, I don't always have a good plan when I make these videos. I just kind of get a story written and then I try to record it, and then I just work on everything in my spare time. Um, like today, I've been working on this story about Ed Kemper, and that guy just freaks me out. He's just too nice sounding and too nonchalant about everything he did. And if you look at his story, um, he has a horrible life. He was locked in a basement his entire life almost. And I mean, it's no wonder the guy was burying animals alive and then digging up their remains a few days later. It's just creepy. But I spent most of today writing this one, and I think I've got a good intro if you guys want to hear it. In 1973, Edmund Kemper phoned police to confess his latest murder, only to have officers dismiss it as a prank, unable to believe that their friend Big Ed was a killer. This unbelievable moment captures the duality of Kemper's life, the man who commits unspeakable crimes yet seems so harmless even to the police. I think it's a pretty good intro. But this is just a regular style kind of story. I kind of cover everything. I don't know if I'm actually going to start with him confessing or if I want to talk about other things first, but I've got a pretty good draft already. But anyways, guys, I think this is going to be everything for the live today. I'm kind of my mouth's getting dry and I'm kind of running out of things to say. But if you guys love this type of stuff, just leave comments and let me know, and I'll try to do it more often. I kind of like hanging out, so I just wish I had a better space, so I look like one of those cool YouTubers with like a cool true crime room or something. But all I have is my little room, and that's it. But anyways, guys, thanks for being here. As always, stay kind, be vigilant, and always question the truth. I'll catch you in the next video.